May 2022 will forever go down in Chelsea Football Club history. It is the date when we unfortunately parted with a man that us as the Chelsea fans loved dearly and, in my opinion, still love dearly. And that man is Roman Abramovich. He was sanctioned by the EU for his involvement with Russia, all to do with the Russian and Ukrainian war, and obviously the fact, in their opinion at the time, that he was benefiting business-wise from Russia, and he was forced to sell Chelsea Football Club, not allowed in to the UK. And in the last day or two, it has basically been announced that the EU have now downgraded the sanctions on Roman Abramovich and deemed it that he did not benefit from Russia and from the war and everything involved in that. And obviously, that has left a hugely bitter taste in the mouth of Chelsea fans, you know, especially with what has happened at the football club since then. So, bear in mind, I'm not an expert on these sort of situations, and there is a man sat across from me who is way more clever, or cleverer, I should say. That's the real word for it.
I think you're very smart, and I think you do yourself a disservice.
He's cleverer than I am, either way. I've got the big dog here, Josh Aveste. We're going to talk about this. When the news broke at the time of recording yesterday that the sanctions have been downgraded and now it's almost packaged as if Roman Abramovich had actually done nothing wrong. How did you feel? Because for me, I've not been this angry as a Chelsea fan.
Yeah.
For a very, very long time.
So first of all, I have to say it's a sensitive issue in that we're dealing with a war, and we've got a lot of Ukrainian viewers that I know that love the channel, and so you've got to be very sensitive with these sort of things. You know what I mean? If he has got an affiliation, and to be honest with you, you and I will never know what the affiliation is with the Russian government and how he made his money and how that all went back to Russia, right? So I don't think we can speak in any real clarity in terms of that. I think we'll be doing ourselves a disservice if we do. But what I will say is that the government getting involved in football is something that really concerns me. It's something that worries me. It's not just about Roman Abramovich. They want to set up this new independent regulator, and they want to, the government, want to have a say in the way that football is run at the highest level. An organisation that has run very happily and without any government's, sort of stipulation for a very long time. The Premier League is one of the best leagues in the world for a reason, in that, they've been allowed to create capitalist society and crack on, and we don't have wage caps and things like that. By the way, they're trying to impose a wage cap in the Premier League at the moment, which would be disastrous, to be honest with you. But looking back on the Roman situation, I think it was so shameful the way that it did happen and the way that he was forced to sell something which he cared so much about. Can you imagine? Like, let's just paint a scenario. You love Tenerife, going to Tenerife on holiday, don't you?
Love it.
You love it, right? Imagine if you bought a home in Tenerife, your holiday home. You cared so much about it. You invested loads of money in it. You built a new swimming pool, a couple of gardens. You paid for some staff to work there because you're earning so much money now with the boxing. You really were investing in it. And then the Tenerife government one day just said, you know what? We don't really like what you're doing, Joe. We don't like that you're a Chelsea fan. We don't like your affiliations in boxing. And so we're going to take all of that away from you, and you're going to be forced to sell it.
And this is the key thing here. Obviously, that would be on a scale a million times lower than what Roman Abramovich did for the economy of the UK, for Chelsea Football Club, for the, for the borough of Chelsea and Kensington, for London as a whole. But the other thing, which is very important that you touched on, is obviously we've got a lot of Ukrainian subscribers, Ukrainian followers who we love dearly. We love all our subscribers here. And I want to specifically, let this be known that this isn't, in my opinion, something that is solely based around the war in Ukraine.
No, I'm not looking at it from a political sense.
No, I'm not looking at it from a political sense. And not only that, this predates, right, Roman Abramovich having the access to enter the UK predates a lot further back than the war between Russia and Ukraine starting, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It predates probably would I be, I'm guessing, but 2 years prior?
Yeah, there are. And look, mate, there are allegations to say that Roman Abramovich was very much sort of ushered out of Russia and wasn't very welcome in Russia. I mean, look, if you go into the weeds of the connections between Russian oligarchs and Putin and the Russian state and how close Roman Abramovich was and what he ended up doing, it's a murky old world, and there aren't any clear answers, and intentionally so. You know, there's briefings on either side, and so I think to blanket sanction all Russian oligarchs or wealthy people in the UK at that point, and to a level in which he was forced to sell, is a really strange thing. And the fact, like, the key thing here to say is the EU have now downgraded the sanctions, right? That doesn't now, obviously, because of Brexit, includes Britain. So Britain still continue the sanctions on Russia, right? Partly because we're still involved in the war, and helping Ukraine and funding the war effort. So the fact of the matter is that really, can you use the word the club was stolen from him?
Well,
the club,
I think to an extent, yeah.
When are you ever going to get, I don't use this word too lightly, but like a benevolent owner of a football club? Like, there are not a lot of owners out there that just invest in the football club because they care about the place. I think over 20 odd years, Roman proved that. You know,
I think Roman Abramovich is the best owner of a football club that I've witnessed in my lifetime, in terms of immediate success on the field, prioritizing success on the field, and in the short term as well. And this is something that we're going to move on to from a business standpoint. Did he run the club brilliantly? No, probably not. We received 2 transfer bans under Roman Abramovich. One was sort of upheld, and we won a case against one that we did have to serve. In the midst of serving that, we won ourselves a nice little Champions League not long after. So wouldn't argue too much against it, because during that transfer ban, there were players that came to the forefront that maybe wouldn't have played their part and helped us win that Champions League had it not been for that ban. We won multiple trophies under Roman Abramovich. We haven't won a trophy since Roman Abramovich. Before we start to speak about the ownership and what's going on at the moment with Chelsea Football Club, can I just ask you, and it's completely hypothetical, we haven't won a trophy since the Super Cup?
Yeah, 2022, right?
2022. How many pieces of silverware do you think we'd have in that time had Roman Abramovich continued to stay the owner of Chelsea Football Club?
I think we would have won a domestic trophy. Like, I don't think we would have won the league.
You don't?
I don't think we would have won the league.
I'm going to be honest with you, mate. I think this season we'd have won the league.
What's the rationale behind that? Because I've got a clear rationale why I don't think we would have won the league.
Roman Abramovich never went more than Roman Abramovich never went more than 4 seasons without winning the league. The last season that he was the owner of Chelsea Football Club was the Lukaku season, right? Yeah. Now, we know that he went and spent big on Lukaku because we won the Champions League, and he thought that's the missing piece to the puzzle. We're winning the league, right?
And we thought we were going to win the league.
And we thought we were going to win the league, and we didn't. It's fine, right? That was a statement of intent there from Roman Abramovich. Yep. And Roman Abramovich wasn't a man that would dust himself off and go, oh, well, I tried. He'd come twice as hard the next season. Yeah. I do not see him making that sort of statement of intent, going and signing Lukaku, and when it didn't work out, him going, oh, well, you know, we've done our bollocks there. He would have continued, and I think we would have picked up another league title in that time.
There's 2 reasons why I don't think that's the case. One is because I think you had to get rid of a huge amount of deadwood that was in that squad. I think, you know, the Champions League victory papered over some substantial cracks that we had in that squad. You know, you were having to replace players left, right, and centre. You had players out of contract. Let's be honest, mate. We were in a rebuild, weren't we?
Yeah, the end of the Roman Abramovich era wasn't rosy. You know, it wasn't exactly the same as the sort of decade or so prior to that, or a couple of decades prior to that. But at the same time, we had a man at the wheel that we trust. You know.
Yep.
And maybe...
And not just a man. I think we had a whole team that we trusted. Marina.
Yeah.
We trusted Petr Cech, who was involved at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we trusted the manager at that time. Implicitly trusted the manager. Thomas Tuchel at that period of time was a man, an untouchable man, wasn't he? Even with everything that he was going through. So what I'm saying is I don't think I think we would be better off with Roman still in the helm, but I don't think we'd be going on an unprecedented trophy run because I think we had a lot of work to do to rebuild that squad. But I think he probably would have done it better.
Do you think we would have had a 12th place finish in the league?
Well, we had a 10th place finish under Roman, didn't we?
Once.
Yes.
Once.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
in how many years? How many years?
20 odd years.
Once in 20 years.
Yeah.
We had a 12th place finish in the first opportunity of doing so.
Yeah.
The first crack of the whip. The next time out, we miss Champions League football again.
Yeah.
If we don't make Champions League football this season, it will be the first time in 25 years that Chelsea have gone 3 seasons on the bounce about making Champions League football.
Should we get then into reviewing the board as it currently is then? Because I think while I've been playing devil's advocate, I strongly believe that we'd be in a better place with Roman, but these guys have come in and I think they're operating in a very different way. So we should talk about
they
that.
are operating in a different model. I think that one thing that I have tried to express when I speak to fans that are in very much against the board at this moment in time is I've tried to say that we need to redefine the way we look at things a little bit, and we need to understand that although Chelsea are actually not the only ones doing this, but the ones that are getting the most attention in their way of transfer dealings at the moment, very possibly in 10, 15 years' time, will be looked as the trailblazers of doing this method of transfer business, buying a Kane Chukwuemeka for the likes of 25 million and selling them on for the likes of 40 million, flipping a Cesar Casadei and doubling our profit on him, on what we made.
Was it double? I think it was about 2 million more.
2 million more. Maybe that's not the one. Viega is one that I think would maybe just about double our profit on.
We're keeping Vega, so I don't know. We're not going to sell Vega.
I think he gets sold at the end of that spell.
No, apparently he wants to come back and play.
Okay. Either way.
We've sold to answer your question. We've sold players. We've sold players well. Like look at Kai Havertz, Mason Mount. Yeah, you could go on, right?
And the point I'm trying to make is more so like when we sign a new player now, I don't get a buzz. I don't get a buzz because I don't feel like necessarily they're going to feature for us. Mateus Omogu. Yeah. Or Matisse Omogu, right? Yeah. Omogu. Yeah. Do I know whether he's going to play? God knows. You know what I mean?
About him.
Could play tonight, but I don't know anything about him, so I don't know. Sometimes there'll be ones that sort of unearthed gems that definitely under the ownership of Roman Abramovich, we may not have ever signed a Andre Santos, and he looks like he's going to be a great player if he continues and plays for Chelsea and comes back from his loan. But the uncertainty of that is something that I think that Chelsea fans haven't been used to and unfortunately need to get used to. Now, here's the first thing, right? I was doing a live stream the other night and I got not criticism, but I got a lot of people say like, you don't sort of speak about the ownership and there being protests against Blueco and Clear Lake and whatnot. And my thing is this, right? It's not to say, and this is why we're doing this episode right now, it's not to say that I think the ownership's hands are clean. It's not to say that I don't think they've done wrong. It's not to say that I don't think that maybe their sole interest isn't 100% in Chelsea, because all of those things I would say that I would, I would throw that shade at the ownership, right? But at the same time as this, protest or not, and believe me, if it got to a point where I felt they were necessary, yes, I would be outside Stamford Bridge at protests if it got to a point where I felt it was necessary. But can you tell me a protest that you can ever remember really being successful?
It's not about that though. It's like if it got to the level in which they were Glazers, do you know what I mean? Like they were that level of owner, then we would be out there doing it.
Yeah, we would be out there doing it, but then
what would it make a difference?
What would it make a difference?
It doesn't make a difference.
These people, mate,
Yeah.
listen, these people don't give a fuck.
No, they don't. But
This is business. This is business, right?
is.
So here's what I'm saying. So all I can answer is this. Before we get on to protesting and things like that, all I can answer is the questions that I was getting when they were saying, this YouTuber, he calls out the ownership and you don't, and blah, blah, blah. Mate, I don't do any work with Chelsea. Like, I haven't got any affiliation specifically with the club and I'm going to benefit and therefore I'm not doing it. But what I do have is a channel and a platform where for the vast majority of the time, and especially so when we're winning, me and you sit down, we have a laugh, it's positive vibes, it's good energy and whatnot. Yeah. And I think that sometimes that's what people need. So there are more negative stories that, yes, we have to touch on. But if there are negative stories that I don't feel like are ones that, you know, we can have any impact on and that the fan base are really going to have much of a say in. Look how long the Glazers were at Old Trafford and they're still basically fucking majority owners now.
The fact of the matter is it that bad that we need to be protesting in the streets about the performance of the board?
No.
Like I think you can have criticisms of the board, and I think there are several. I think we could. Like, I hope we are going to talk about them in this episode. Like, there are so many things that I'm disappointed with the way that the board are running the club, but also they've signed Moises Caicedo, probably one of the best centre mids that we've had since N'Golo Kante. You know, they've signed Nicholas Jackson, who, you know, as much as he's profligate and misses some chances, is a very good signing for a very low amount of money and is very young and
30 odd million he came in for.
So as much
Enzo Fernandez is now starting to work
Yeah.
in this team, you know. Malo Gusto was an absolute
Bargain.
snip what we signed him for. Look over on the other side. Kukurea came in, we didn't think he'd be any good, and he has been good. And some people will say, well, if you make 100 signings, then there's a chance that so many of them are going to come good. But
and
the
these are the
problem is,
Yeah.
what I'm saying here is, you can look at it that way, but tell me the ones that have been integrated into the first team that haven't come good. There are ones, there are examples. As for the moment, unless he smashes it on loan at Aston Villa or ends there on a permanent or whatever, and then that's his time with Chelsea done, Axel Disasi, Robert Sanchez, there are ones that haven't come good, but I don't think there's enough to definitively say that every player who's signed has been shit. Cole Palmer is one straight away that I'd say if we sell now, he's worth 3 times the transfer value we bought him for. You know, Romeo Lavia is a player that if we can keep fit, he would be, mate, if he was fit starting week in, week out, his market value would be about 100 million, right? True. So here's what I'm saying. There has been good business done by the ownership. I think that good managers will paper over the cracks of bad owners, whether they are bad owners or not, we get onto. But at this moment in time, the temperature's hot because we're on a bad run of form, you know? Yeah. And had we not been on a bad run of form, I don't think the temperature had been as hot. But let's just move on to the recent, right? And we look at this transfer window we've got, right? We've just had. They wanted the pure profit on Conor Gallagher, right? And they found the deal to send him to Atletico Madrid with Samu.
But who, by the way, we would have looked back on that deal and said that was an exceptional deal.
Yeah.
If Samu had come in, we would have looked back on that and said brilliant.
And that was the owner's intention, right? Yeah. And I honestly can say
something weird happened there.
That had that of gone through, we wouldn't have had any sort of ill feeling, any negativity around it. Unfortunately, that deal didn't happen. That deal didn't come through. And that's where the ownership needs to take accountability. And then they needed to have gone in another direction or kept Conor Gallagher at the club and maybe not had that sort of pure profit sale from him, right? Yeah. Now,
they needed to, though. That we would have been fucked if we hadn't sold him for pure profit because of the PSR situation.
Well, there you go.
That's how crazy that we're the situation that we're in. We had to sell Conor Gallagher. We were forced to do it. The other way we could have gone is we could have sold him to Spurs.
Yeah.
So how would Chelsea fans have felt about that?
And we wouldn't have wanted to do that.
We would never have done it.
But as part of that, we needed to sign João Felix. Now, João Felix was never a player, in my opinion, that Enzo Maresca wanted, and it was very, very clear. 6 months on, he's out the door. You could question whether he should even be out the door. If it was between João Felix and Christopher Nkunku, I'd have kept João Felix, to be honest. But going into this transfer window, I think it was obvious from the day that the winter transfer window opened that we were considerably weak in certain areas, right? Goalkeeper. The manager clearly does not have an outstanding goalkeeper that he trusts because he's putting Robert Sanchez in there every game. That tells me that he doesn't trust Philip Jorgensen, and therefore we needed to address that area. That could have been within our hands. We could have called Petrovic back, and I guarantee you that Petrovic would have been starting games, right? Then we looked at the midfield. We were weak there. We're one injury at all times away from disaster, and let's be honest, at the moment, we've only got Kieran Dewsbury Hall as a backup there to Caicedo and Enzo.
Another signing we didn't need.
Another signing we didn't need because Romeo Lavia is obviously consistently injured so far this season and all of last season. What do we do in the meantime? What do we do in the meantime? We'd sold Conor Gallagher and we get rid of Cesar Casadei in that window, and we get in the January window, and we get rid of Carney Chukwuemeka and Renato Vega, two players that could both play in and around those areas, right? Now, at the moment, the PR's coming out that, you can't sort of look into the future and see that injuries could happen. No, you can. You can.
Let's talk about the PR at Chelsea Football Club now, because I think this is the most damning indictment of the board, because I think they think that we're stupid. And the reason why I think that is, they've got, the board at Chelsea have a fantastic record in public relations. They have a board member who is started and run a PR firm. And so they are very, very good at shaping narratives around what we feel as Chelsea fans. And they do that with very close relationships with journalists. So at the moment, it seems like that journalist more often than not is Matt Law. And actually, I think, when I listen to Matt Law, I think he often makes a lot of sense, but it is quite clear that he has a relationship with Chelsea where they scratch his back, he scratches theirs. Do you know what I mean? And that's what journalism is, unfortunately. So you can't really begrudge him for that. But being the mouthpiece of Chelsea, coming out with a quote recently where they've said, the plan was always to have Mark Gue as the backup. If he gets injured and Nicholas Jackson is also injured, then there is ample planning and ample room for squad building, and there's a number 9 option waiting in the wings. I disagree. And I also think that takes us to be idiots, because we know that that's not the case. We've seen it on the pitch that Chris Nkunku isn't a number 9. We know that Cole Palmer isn't a number 9 and is weighted in that position. So we're not stupid. We go to the games, we watch them. Like we know what we're talking about.
And also, when we speak about Matt Law, by the way, this is another thing that infuriates me, right? We are in need of a number 9 right now, right? 2 weeks ago, we were still in need of a number 9, by the way, right? Even when Nicholas Jackson was fit, we were still in need of something, in my opinion, right? But even now the transfer window closes, we're getting Matt Law telling us Chelsea hold a strong interest in Liam Delap. I couldn't give a fuck. If Chelsea hold an interest in Liam Delap. I couldn't give a fuck whether Liam Delap comes or not. Why are we seeing these PR statements that are being churned out constantly going, don't worry, because we're going to go for Liam Delap in the summer. Oh, fuck you, no, we're turning into the new Man United, aren't we? How many times did you hear that throughout the years? Oh, don't worry, because Man United are going to go and sign this striker in the summer. We're going to do this. Oh, just being a Chelsea fan. How many times have we heard that, don't worry, because we go for Victor Osimhen in the summer? It's never fucking happened, mate. Who cares? And now you're talking about a player who is playing for a team that are probably going to get relegated this season, who has, 9 goal involvements or something like that in 24-odd games. And I'm telling you now, if Mark Gue had started up front for him every single game, he'd have had the same.
So true. The quote was from Matt Law was, Chelsea's injury has left Chelsea short of strikers, but it's down to bad luck and not bad planning. I fundamentally disagree with you, Matt Law, because the bad planning comes in from when you have a failed transfer where you've tried to offload Conor Gallagher because you've bought so poorly previously, and then you bring in João Felix, a player that we didn't need and have paid a crazy amount of money for, and didn't sign Samuel Omorodion when we could have signed him. That is the definition. That is the definition of bad planning.
And can I put a nail in the coffin here for you, mate? I'm not being funny. All right, yeah, people are saying, just because he's got a debut goal, you haven't seen anything of him and whatnot. How the fuck have Spurs managed to get Matthias Tell on a loan move, who we were interested in? We were the fucking front runners for this guy.
It's a dry loan, I think, as well. I think it's just a pure loan. So it's not like they're going to have to buy him at the end of it.
No.
It's a loan.
So Nkunku wanted buying, Bayern wanted Nkunku.
Yeah, but
we could have got him out.
But even if we kept Nkunku, it's a loan. We could have just loaned Matthias Tell.
Yeah,
we've got a bigger, like, no offense, but we've got a bigger pulling power than Spurs do. Like, even now, we've still got a bigger, like, is it what he wants to go and play relegation football, or does he want to go and try and get in the Champions League?
There you go.
It's a very different level.
Go and sign for a manager who very
out
possibly will be out the door within a month, within the next couple of games.
The question that I've got for
that.
you now is, do you worry about our pulling power as a club? Like, do you look at the way that we've been run and think in the summer there are going to be players, especially if we don't get Champions League football, that go, why the fuck would I sign for Chelsea when it's a car crash?
Mate, you've just seen Matthias Tell go to Spurs.
Yeah.
How are you even asking me that question?
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like, I don't know how you're even asking me that question.
Yeah.
Victor Osimhen, for example, he, for whatever reason, he didn't come to Chelsea. Went to Galatasaray.
I think that was his agents rather than...
Yeah, mate, it may well have been his agent, but we're fucking Chelsea, mate.
I mean, if we wanted him, we could have got him.
A player should be chomping at the bit to come to Chelsea. We've not even got a shirt sponsor for the second season in a row.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's another thing to beat the board over the head with, because they said when they came in that they had felt that Chelsea was an untapped opportunity for commercial revenue and that we had lacked behind US sport for the last 20 years. That the British and Premier League commercialisation had lacked behind American sport. That's a level of arrogance that I think winds up Chelsea fans, because they think that these guys have come in and they think that they're saying they know they've got the answers. And often what these external investors forget is that there are people that have worked in the game for considerably longer and know what they're doing in terms of commercial revenue. Mate, we had some of the biggest sponsorship deals in the world at Chelsea. We had front of shirt sponsors that were consistently pulling well above our weight, because we don't have a huge stadium. You know, we were constantly battling to get into the Champions League and managing to do it and still performing on the pitch. And we'd have a front of shirt sponsor. They're like, I understand why they're holding out, because they want big money. They want to get in the Champions League and then negotiate the deal, because then you can earn considerably more. But the fact that we haven't had one is a damning indictment of them. And really, I think if you're talking about, we're going to be bringing in money to the club, I think that's one of the biggest concerning areas. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge amount of money, because you know you get your money from elsewhere, but it's a big fail from their perspective.
Obviously, we've got the involvement with Todd Boehly and Vivid Seats, and you know the resale of tickets at extortionate prices to the tourism trade and whatnot, and that's something that we touched on in an episode before. Ultimately, Chelsea fans want to see success on the pitch, and we feel that with the signings of Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo and these guys, Cucurella even, we really felt like we were getting that. And I was very, very infused at the start of the Clear Lake era when it was, you know, fronted by Boehly and whatnot. I was thinking, yeah, we're buying for the here and now. It's young players still, but it's players that are the most highly touted in Europe. You know, no one that watched European football hadn't heard of Moises Caicedo. No one that watched European football hadn't heard of Enzo Fernandez. You know, these players that we were going out and we were getting, and we were sprinkling in some younger players like Anoni Madueke, who maybe wasn't that well known, but actually came in and looked good and hit the ground running, as did Malo Gusto. And I thought that the business was quite good. But in, you know, the window that we've just had, you know, there's been some misses in there. I think Pedro Neto's a good player, but also, you know, to have had the likes of Andre Santos out on loan, Petrovic out on loan, players that we could really, really do.
You got to remember they own that club. You got to remember they want that club to be as successful as Chelsea. They own Strasbourg. Like, this is the thing that no one talks about. Like, they want Strasbourg to be a very successful club in France. They want Strasbourg to make a lot of money.
So what happens if Strasbourg eventually get into the Champions League and so do Chelsea?
Then we're in big trouble, because I think as per UEFA rules, I don't think we can play in the same competition. I think there's something about that we can't play. So, but if they get into the Champions League and we're not, there's going to be a thing where they might favour Strasbourg. I think the Premier League there's always more money.
There would be, because I think there's more money in the Premier League. But one thing I do know is Strasbourg fans aren't happy about the ownership. Strasbourg fans aren't up for it. Look, we are. I think we can mutually agree that we're not like Blueco, Clear Lake out, anything like that. I think that the temperature's hot at the minute, like I say, because we're going for a bad run of form, an injury crisis has hit, and things don't look like they are being prioritised short term in terms of short term winning, short term mentality and stuff like that. Go on. There also are a lot of good things that have happened, I think, in my opinion, under this ownership, that I think that it would be, maybe I'd be dipping into what people want to hear rather than the truth.
The way you feel. Well, let me summarize it like this, and I think you will agree with the majority of what I'm about to say. I would follow Chelsea if they were in the Conference League. You know, I would follow them through and through, and I've seen Chelsea have bad owners in the past. Owners that could have run the football club into the ground, and what I
did.
Yeah, and what I would do is I would always support the football club, and I think what we can do as fans is put pressure on certain decisions, and I think we can hold the board accountable. And I'm really glad organisations like the Pitch Owners, and if you're not a member of the Pitch Owners Foundation, you should look into doing that, because that's something that's really beneficial to you, and you own a part of the club, and I think that's really important.
I'm a Pitch owner,
and I know you are. So for anyone that isn't, I think you should look into that, because I think that's super important to own it. But I think when you put pressure on boards, the one thing that they're never going to do is go, oh, fuck me, Joey Knight said that we should leave.
Yeah.
So do you know what we're going to do? We're just going to sack it off and sell everything up and ride off into the sunset.
And that's my thing. Sorry to interrupt you, mate, but that's my thing, because I wasn't getting annoyed, but like when we was having this debate on the live stream that I did the other night, we were talking about it and that, I was saying, like, mate, like, stuff that's out of my control is out of my control, but what is in my control is this channel. This channel's my baby. It's in my control, and I don't want it to be a place of toxicness. Do you know what I mean? I don't want it to be a toxic environment. Let me just, I don't want to, no offence, like, I'm not Fran Shady, but I don't want it to become Arsenal fan TV back in the day where people are tuning in to laugh at me having fucking meltdowns and stuff like that. I want to keep it positive. Sometimes you can't. I can't speak about anything positive from the Chelsea against Brighton game gone by, because it was shit. It was a fucking shit show, and there was fuck all to speak about positive. But at the same time, I'm in control of how this channel runs and whatnot, and what I do want to do is try to focus on the positives when they don't heavily be outweighed by the negatives, which I don't think they're being heavily outweighed. I think the temperature's hot at the minute.
Yeah, it's not even about positive and negatives. I suppose it's like, you know, with your channel, you would get more views if you came out right now and you did a video which was "fuck the board, I want them to leave." Yep. Right? You would, Joey would earn more money. You'd get more views. You know, you'd get more watch time. Everything would increase. You'd probably get more subscribers.
Yep.
Right? But what you and I will never do on this channel is we will never say anything that we don't believe. Right? And so when we sit down and we're talking about the board, much like if we were going to review Roman Abramovich's time as the board, overwhelmingly, like the best owner that Chelsea has ever had. But there were certain things about Roman Abramovich's reign which I wouldn't have loved, and I wouldn't have shouted from the rooftops that I thought was amazing. There were mistakes in that era, not many of them, right? Less than this board, but still mistakes. And so what we've got to do is we've obviously got to talk about the board and put pressure on them when we feel that they are making mistakes. And I think, to be fair to us, we have talked about it when the directors of football have let us down. And we have talked about it in the January window where we felt that they didn't strengthen enough. And when we've talked about certain signings and when they have got it wrong, like a Raheem Sterling, I was called a Raheem Sterling hater. You know, when people said you're going way too hard on Raheem Sterling, he's, you know, you need to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like there's swings and roundabouts. This, you can go too far, but also, again, we're always just going to say it how it is. If we don't like a player and we think they're underperforming in a club that we love and we've supported for our entire lives, we've got the right to do that. Much like we've got the right to question the board. But also, I think there are other examples where you go, they brought in one of the best players that we've ever seen at Chelsea Football Club in Cole Palmer. They brought in one of the best centre mids that we've had in a very long time in Moises Caicedo. There have been some wins. There have been a lot of failures. But what we've got to do is we've always got to discuss both sides of that. I think, like, what I would ask you now then is, if you're ranking it in terms of, like, you strongly agree that they're amazing. They've done a really, really good job. Or you strongly disagree and you think that they need to be out immediately right now. If you're ranking them on a scale, where would you rank them? Would you be in the middle? Would you be?
I'd probably be bang in the middle.
Yeah.
I'd probably be bang in the middle. And the reason I'd be bang in the middle is because I would have wanted success during this time. If you told me we were the best part of 3 years into their ownership and we still haven't won a trophy, I'd say that's massively disappointing. That's not acceptable for Chelsea Football Club. However, their ambition has been proven to me, despite the PR briefings and whatnot, and even including that, their ambition has been proven to me that it is more of a long-term strategy in terms of the 4-year mark, right? So if we get to a point where we don't qualify for Champions League this season and we don't pick up any sort of silverware, whether that be the Conference League this season, whatever, and then next season we're playing, and I still don't think we're getting towards that point, and I still don't think that we're striving to get towards that point, i.e. addressing key issues in the squad in terms of getting certain players out and getting not just players in for shirt numbers and whatever. I'm on about proven players in. Then I think that, I'd be leaning more towards, right, I'm not feeling this ownership at all. But at the minute, I'd say I'm fairly neutral. How about yourself?
I think at the moment I'm neutral and I'm veering on the side of disliking them.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that too.
But I think I'm only saying that because of the form. I think overall, some of the signings have been incredibly positive, but I think, fuck me, we've had some absolute ricks as well. And what I worry about is that the mistakes are going to cost us so much, like the João Felix deal, like the Disasi deal, like the Sterling problem that we're going to have in the summer. We're going to have a João Felix problem in the summer as well. We're going to have players returning that we are going to really struggle to offload. We're going to struggle to offload Sanchez because of his form and how poor he's been. So there's going to be a lot of problems in the summer. Now, if we need to, that is all resolvable. Like if the directors of football are working as hard as they say they're working, then the summer could be brilliant. And actually we need a summer. And if they do, then if we come in and actually strengthen in the way that we need to, we could be, licking our wounds and looking like idiots right now.
There you go.
If they do, so yeah.
It won't be the first time that I've looked like an idiot. People, here's the good news. Tonight, we're going to smash Brighton. I may be live for it. Check my social medias because I'll be putting it out off there. But either way, regardless of whether I'm live or not, you will get a post-match review, which means 2 uploads in one day. You can't get better than that. I will see you all in the next one.